Good day. Thank you for taking the time to interact with this virtual presentation. My name is Harrison Campbell, and I am currently a master's student specializing in curriculum and learning at the Workland School of Education, which is a part of the University of Calgary in Alberta, Canada. The project in this presentation that follows, Literacy in the Green Room, a phenomenological inquiry into what it is like to experience literacy within a theatrical space, is my personal research project that will inform my thesis and is being used in partial fulfillment of the requirements surrounding my master's degree. This study has been approved by my supervisors, Dr. Gabriela Alonso Yanez and Dr. Joe Towers, as well as by the University of Calgary Concurrent Faculty's Research Ethics Board. This study was conceptualized due both to a gap within policy and literature, as well as from my own personal observations and reflective practices when I was an educator. I myself taught in Western Canada for about 3 years, teaching grades 7 to 9 English language arts and assorted electives, grades 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and 9 English language arts and literacy proficiency, and grades 10 to 12 social studies. The quote from Lindquist and Seitz on the slide you see above resonates well with my own personal experiences working within literacy proficiency, and is something that I like to share whenever I talk about my work. In the school authority where I taught, 2 documents that were often relied upon when defining and evaluating literacy were the numeracy and literacy progression charts and the ELL, English Language Learner, benchmarks, with the benchmarks being supported by a document called the Learner Support Plan. Of these 3 common documents, the one with the most student agency, authorship, and identity would probably be the Learner Support Plan, as it is personalized for each student and developed alongside them. However, it can be hard to see the individual student within the other 2 documents. They are very technical and read in some cases like a checklist. And so this study is working to more fully acknowledge student agency, authorship, and identity across literacy learning definitions and assessments. This study will focus upon grade 8 and 9 students enrolled at a specialized fine arts school located in Western Canada. Over my time as an educator, I had the pleasure of teaching several drama classes at the junior high level. The school in which I was working would often fill these classes with a high number of English language learner students, due to the fact that these classes did not require heavy reading and writing. What I came to notice as I taught these students, however, was that drama was far more beneficial to them than I ever could have imagined or predicted, and it was not just because of the lower than average reading and writing. Drama fosters creativity and encourages learners to construct and communicate meaning in varied and unique ways. To have an effective scene, you must engage your audience, consider movements, consider set and props, build context, and speak and communicate in language that is clear and intentional, just to name a few different elements. Visually, such considerations can be made plain by the work of Robin Pascoe, shown above, when she is discussing the language of drama, as it exists beyond reading and writing. This experience got me thinking about how literacy changed for the students in my drama classes. Suddenly, writing scenes and stories became entertaining and engaging, and they had a network of peers going through similar experiences. Suddenly, they had increased success with language and were able to communicate and tell stories that had meaning that was relevant for them. Inspired by these students, you will see the above research question of what is it like to experience literacy within a theatrical space. This study draws upon a comprehensive array of literature. However, at the heart of the work, you will find the New London Group and their seminal 1994 publication on multiliteracies. Moving beyond monolingual and monocultural approaches and expanding the scope of literacy pedagogy, the group proposed a framework of multiliteracies embracing multimodality and contextual responsiveness to the learning environment. We are in an age of multiplicity surrounding communication techniques, and linguistic and cultural diversities have indeed increased as the group predicted. Despite this, for many years, literacy education remained monolingual and monocultural across many school authorities. Thankfully, the pendulum has begun to shift, and school authorities are becoming more contextually responsive and flexible in their literacy policies. This study is meant to provide another level of potential multimodality to the learning environment, as well as a method that educators could consider within their own practices. As literature and other presentations at this very conference have shown, students need inclusive and equitable spaces in which to learn. For English language learner students, these spaces are where they become code breakers, understanding both a new language and its situational applications, text users, understanding how to use language to construct meaning, and text analysts, understanding how to understand the meaning of others. This type of learning is a lifelong learning process, even for native speakers, and should be treated as such within the classroom as much as possible. This research would contend that artistic inquiry is a way in which to do this, while also serving to address learners' social and cultural well-being. One such example being the peer networks that I spoke of developing earlier, or becoming able to choose topics of cultural relevance to explore over the dramatic process. The research of Wells in 2017, recently published out of New Zealand, supports this claim and substantiates the work of Catherine Marco, 2015, who speaks to new definitions of literacy coming to include social practices serving to identify, interact, and embody experiences with literacy, better providing for enhanced agency, authorship, and identity on the part of learners. Now, when the word theater or theatrical comes up, people often assume that it relates to the traditional proscenium stage seen on Broadway or other local performance halls. While this is partly true, and certainly Broadway is the most famous avenue of theaters, theater can occur anywhere, even online. Think about if you've ever seen a street performer or watched a YouTube video, because both of these are types of performance. In each case, the performer adopts a persona different from their own and embodies and communicates something specific through that persona. Process drama is another example taken from the literature, which is all about creating original text, understanding the text of others, and connecting it to social and cultural considerations. How such text comes to be performed and embodied is up to the artist, but there is no rule saying that it must occur in traditional performance halls, and in this age of technology, performance is moving ever more online, supported by the work of Pascoe, 2002, page 70. As long as a lived or human experience remains at the core of what is being created or communicated, story and play can be used across modalities to perform regardless of the space in which it occurs. This study will create a theatrical space in which students will explore ways of interacting, identifying, and embodying literacy within their own learning. In order to accomplish this, and during the research, my primary role will be to monitor, guide, and support the ongoing work with students. Students will be interviewed, keep a journal, write a monologue, and will rehearse and perform that monologue for an invited audience. It is important to note that the majority of these tasks support the final performance, and that performance should not be used independently of such supports. The effectiveness and quality of any performance is determined in large part by the preparation and scaffolding that goes into it. And in particular, when the work is with students, they need such preparation and scaffolding to be as successful as possible. Interviews. Breaking the structure down further, I will begin by going over a quite traditional research technique, and that's interviews. The questions for these interviews focus upon the term literacy, which is not always made explicit within schools, despite being present in a vast majority of formal documentation. This may present a possible disconnect or simply an inconsistency in language. In some cases, students may be developing practices of literacy without attaching the word literacy to them. And in that case, the interesting part of the data collection will be coming to understand what they relate it to instead and why. With the exception of the second and sixth questions, the protocol is designed to avoid yes or no responses and will be run in a semi-structured format to allow for potential follow-up questions to be addressed and/or discussion to be developed between myself and the participant. Even in cases where questions may initially generate a yes or no response, the open-endedness of the semi-structured interview will provide flexibility required to dig deeper and explore the core of a given experience. Interviews will occur one-on-one and will be approximately 30 minutes to 1 hour per student. Reflective journal. During the second task, students will be called upon to keep a reflective journal considering the same questions from the interview, shown above, over a period of 1 month. It is expected that students will reflect upon these questions 1 to 2 times per week, using a pre-selected modality or way of communicating for each week. This task reinforces both the interview protocol and provides participants with the time to be reflective about their experiences. The reason for the breakdown of questions into different weeks and modalities is to begin showing students different ways of thinking about communication and how to present it. This type of journaling also helps students get more comfortable with writing and performance, along with the idea of generating new ideas prior to sitting down and writing a monologue. This moves the experience the student is going through out of a single point in time and instead follows the student over a wider period of time. As the student reflects and works on the project, it is hoped that their perspectives will change, adapt, and evolve beyond where they started from. Monologue creation. This third task helps to bring the participant more fully into the research process and helps them to maintain ownership and creative control over their own experiences. While I shall be present to assist with formatting, logistics, and potential writer's block, this monologue is very much the participant's creation. It is meant to communicate their feelings, opinions, frustrations, and questions to their invited audience, as well as to show how current educational practices are shaping those factors for better or for worse. It should be noted that students shall only work with their own data, journals and interview transcripts, to create their own monologues, and shall not see anyone else's data except on the performance night itself. They will be creating characters that reflect their experiences with literacy and their learning more generally for the purposes of these monologues and later performances, both to protect their own privacy and to allow them the opportunity to explore their own personas. Performance. The capstone of this whole process is the performance of the monologue itself for the purposes of showing participants that literacy is an active concept and that it can be created as well as consumed. It is important for those involved to be able to see literacy as active, living, and adaptive so that they are encouraged towards lifelong learning practices in relation to literacy. Given that the study is grounded in phenomenology, there shall also be an effort made to examine participants' responses in relation to one another thematically, to explore common trends, interlinking all the experiences together. Additionally, the eventual exam committee will be invited to this event to allow them the opportunity to live through this experience with the students and researchers. It is hoped that this will make the resulting thesis more authentic for those involved, as well as provide additional context to this work that is already somewhat untraditional. Earlier I spoke about how theatrical spaces could come to be redefined and how online sources could prove to be a potential avenue for such redefinition. Above are just a few examples of tools or techniques students of mine came to utilize over the years in some of my creative elective classes, such as drama, technology, or graphic design. The caution I provide is to be very aware about where the final product is being published. Try and make sure that, for class purposes, everything created is on your school authority's server, and that it is encrypted as well as password protected for privacy reasons and identity protection. To this point, using online platforms such as WordPress, D2L, and other password-protected content creation tools on encrypted school servers can allow students to create in digital spaces while still protecting their privacy and identity. This has implications for digital literacy due in large part to how it will come to alter more traditional modalities of communication. Students are neither creating nor consuming literacy in the same way as their parents, or in some cases even their siblings. As information and communication become more widely available and unfiltered, the importance of literacy development only increases as learners need to both comprehend and filter information that's presented to them. The data collected in this study will be used to examine such similarities and differences in themes among student responses, prior to making a claim about how these students experience literacy learning. The school in which this research is occurring specializes within the fine and performing arts, as well as having a very dedicated visual arts program. The timetable allows for both more traditional classes such as mathematics, practical sciences, humanities, current events, reading, and creative writing, as well as courses such as psychology, production, where the students create a full play from scratch each semester, artist collaboration, where students learn from professional artists, rock band, and other flexible blocks such as all hands on deck, where students tackle courses in which they are struggling with multiple teachers assisting them, or special ops, which is meant to address any gaps in learning and provide additional working time on more traditional subjects. The research study itself was also built into the timetable, occurring during production, special ops, and avoiding times such as AHOD, which remains dedicated to mathematics instructional support. At this point in time, 6 students are involved across both grade 8 and grade 9, with the majority of students having attended the specialized school for 2 years or more. Initial data collected and transcribed via interviews has shown that students within this setting are connecting literacy to terms such as songwriting, production techniques, directing, acting, performing, monologue writing, creative writing, and more, showing that their scope of what they perceive literacy to be increased beyond what I traditionally experienced as a teacher in more traditional K-12 settings. In conclusion, I hope to show how the type of work undertaken within this study can come to influence educational practices and policy, as well as how literacy can come to be recognized as an ongoing learning process integrating student agency, authorship, and identity. Should you have any questions, concerns, or feedback, I would be happy to hear from you. My contact information will be on the following slide, and additionally, you can contact me via the comments section available on this online presentation. Feel free to contact me at this email address, included here, should you wish to discuss any questions, concerns, or feedback that you may have. I thank you again for taking the time to interact with this presentation, and I hope that you can enjoy the rest of what this wonderful conference has to offer.